Hello everyone, Jules here. Welcome back to my channel. I'm back after a 2-month break due to some medical issues and I'm finally back. And I'm going to talk about a Qabala topic today. And before I get started on that, I just want to thank everyone for their well wishes while I was away. It really did help and it really did make a difference. So I really did appreciate that. So thank you to the well wishers. It was really helpful during my time away. So today's topic, I'm going to talk about Qabalah and pathworking. And I wanted to talk about that because pathworking is not discussed very much in regard to Qabalah. And I wanted to recommend 2 great books. And these books are very accessible. One of them is more accessible than the other. But the good thing about books about pathworking is it's helpful for people who want to know more about pathworking, and I think there's a lot of people who may know about pathworking and Qabalah, but they don't know how to go about it. So these books are really good for that. So the first one is written by Ted Andrews. Now, I've got an older version of this book, but the good news is that this book is going to be republished in October this year by Llewellyn Publications. So look out for this book. Okay, so the older title is called More Simplified Magic, but the subtitle is Pathworking and the Tree of Life. And when this book is reissued in October this year, it's going to be titled Pathworking and the Tree of Life by Ted Andrews. So this, as I said, this is an older copy. It's quite thick. This is an older copy, but I got a more recent printing. This book was also published in about 2011, and it had a green cover, and it was just called Pathworking and the Tree of Life. So you may be able to get that one on Amazon as well. So anyway, I don't think that the later version in October is going to be that much different. It's been revised, but I don't think it's been revised very much. So that's the good news. This is probably the most accessible book about pathworking and Qabalah. So I'm going to talk about what's in the book. And I think for a lot of people, they may want to start with this book. I'm going to talk about the second book as well, but this book by Ted Andrews is the most accessible book. So it's in 4 parts. You got an introduction, and the first part 1 is called The Mystical Qabalah. So it's all divided up into different chapters. You've got the first chapter, Entering the Tree of Life. The second chapter, The Power of Imagic. So it's magic with an I in front of it. So in other words, that's to do with image and imagination. And he's calling it Imagic, the power of Imagic. Chapter 3, The Temple of Knowledge. Chapter 4, Symbols, Images, and the Magical Body. So even just the title of these chapters, you can tell that all of these things are important, and they are the things that you're going to need for pathworking. Part 2 is all about the paths. It's called the sacred paths, the paths of wisdom. So these are the 22 paths of Qabala. Part 3 is called Touching Greater Power. So you've got Chapter 6, Pathworking and the Tree of Life. Chapter 7, Creating Astral Doorways. So, as I was saying, this is really getting into the nuts and bolts of how to do pathworking and all of the different methods. Chapter 8 is Pathworking Techniques. So I really do think this is the best book to start with, because you need to understand what pathworking is and what's required and what you're actually doing and why. And this book is really great for that. Part 4 is called The Holy of Holies. So you've got Chapter 9, Amplifying the Effects. Chapter 10, Grounding and Protection, which of course is always important. Whenever you're doing ritual, this type of work, you would need grounding and protection. Chapter 11, Validating Your Experiences. So that's not included in many of these types of books. Then you've got an appendix of pronunciation, toning the divine names. These are the appendices. Magical images and quick reference, which is always handy. Then there's another appendix for tales and myths. Now, that's really useful as well, especially to do with correspondences. So you're getting into the correspondence part with these appendices. Then you've got a bibliography and index. So, as I was saying, this book is really essential. But it's so accessible. So I'll just give you an idea of some of the pictures, some of the illustrations. There is a list of the illustrations. I'll just go back to this. There's a list of illustrations. There is a list of tables. There are exercises in this book. So it does have everything you need. I think it's really great that this is going to be reissued in October this year, because this has been basically out of print for quite a long time. As I was saying, this is an older version. This one here is a 1999 edition. Then there was a 2011, which is, we're talking 15 years ago for the 2011 edition. So this new edition this year in October, that's a 15-year break since 2011, since this has been in print. So it's really worthwhile. So, for example, here's some of the pictures in here. This one's called Mysteries Upon the Tree. That's what that one's called. Mysteries Upon the Tree. And when you get into the pathworking, you've got here all the tarot paths on the Tree of Life, where they're placed there. Hope you can see it. So you've got all the 22 paths all here between each of the spheres, and you've got the list, they're all listed here. The path numbers are all listed here. So, yeah, I just think this is a great book. I mean, I still look at this, from time to time. I mean, it's a reference book, but it's also a really good kind of workbook And the other thing that a lot of people will really like, a lot of people are interested in this, he also equates the Psalms from the Bible with the paths. So, for example, you've got the 18th path here, and you've got the Psalm, the relevant Psalm for that. A lot of people really like to work with Psalms, with but the thing that you need to keep in mind here with the Psalms, the Psalms have been reworded by Ted Andrews, so they're not the Psalms straight from the Bible, but they're reworded. You have got all of the, you've got all of the correspondences here, for each of the paths. Correspondences are there. Just having a look at the appendices at the back as well for, there's all kinds of things here. I think the Tales and Myths section is really good too. You've got the usual correspondence table. These are all in the appendices. But I think it's really, really interesting to have this table at the back of Tales and Myths for the paths. Okay, this is really quite a unique book. It's really worthwhile. It's great that it's coming back into print in October. October for the US. So it'll probably be in the US first. But you'll be able to get this on Amazon anyway, the new version in October. And it'll be called Pathworking in the Tree of Life by Ted Andrews. So it's really quite accessible. Okay, so that's that one. Like I said, good one to start with. Absolutely best one to start with. The second one is an absolute classic, A Garden of Pomegranates by Israel Regardie. And there's part 1 and part 2 in this book. Part 2 of the second part of the book is a separate book by Chic Cicero and Sandra Tabatha Cicero. So the Ciceros, as usual, they are always the ones who curate Israel Regardie's work with Llewellyn Publications. So, Garden of Pomegranates. This is a very highly regarded pathworking book for Qabala Pathworking. This book is relatively accessible too. I mean, if you wanted to just buy this, if you wanted to start with this, you could. You could. It's written in such a way that this may be enough, but if you are brand new to Qabala Pathworking, I'm just recommending to start with the Ted Andrews book. But if you wish to just get this book, I mean, you may have some familiarity with Qabala and pathworking. But I think with the Ted Andrews book, it's a really good introduction to Qabala as well. Because this one, I think, kind of this is more for someone who's got some familiarity to start with Qabala. But like I said, it's still fairly accessible. So this is always available. So A Garden of Pomegranates was written by Israel Regardie in about 1932. So this is the 3rd edition of this book. And part 2 is called Skrying on the Tree of Life, and that's written by the Ciceros. So I'm going to talk about what's in this book as well. So you've got a list of illustrations for this one as well, just like the other book to start with. So part 1 is the book by Israel Regardie, Garden of Pomegranates, an outline of the Qabalah. It's by Israel Regardie, but with annotations by the Ciceros. So chapter 1 is the historical survey. Always a good idea to have the historical context for Qabalah. Very important. You've got a chapter on the Sephiroth. Then you've got a chapter on the paths. A chapter on Adam Kadmon, which is the divine Adam, the divine man. Chapter 6 is the literal Qabalah. Chapter 8 is the ladder. So there's 8 chapters to the book by Israel Regardie, to the Garden of Pomegranates. 8 chapters. And there's also, I should also have mentioned, there's an introduction to this 3rd edition by the Ciceros. And there's an introduction to the 2nd edition by Israel Regardie. Then chapter 9 is where part 2 begins, and it's all divided up in the book. But the chapters continue from chapter 8 of the book by Israel Regardie, and then chapter 9 is where part 2 begins, Skrying on the Tree of Life by the Ciceros. Chapter 9, Qabalistic rituals and exercises. Chapter 10, the lower realms of the tree, because you always start at the lower part of the tree first. Chapter 11 is the middle realms of the tree. So these are each of the Sephira and the paths, and then the upper realms of the tree. And by that they mean the, Sephiroth and paths. You've got a glossary, always a great idea. Glossary, bibliography, and index you always need. This is a classic book. This is a great book as well. This is just got a table in here. For example, this is a really useful table. You've got each of the 10 Sephiroth, the planets for each one, even the equivalent of the Egyptian parts of the soul, and the Qabalah parts of the soul as well. So these are really good. With my highlighting in green, you can see there. That's a great table. It's really useful. So Skrying on the Tree of Life, which is part 2 of this book by the Ciceros, this is really worthwhile. This is just as good as A Garden of Pomegranates by Regardie. It's just as good. It's great. So this is one of my favourite books. I just really like both of these books. There's a table in here, in the chapter by Israel Regardie called The Ladder. There's a table here called The Magical Weapons, which is really the magical tools for each Sephira. and what they symbolise. So you can see that there, the magical weapons, which are really the magical tools. Here's another table here for each of the Hebrew letters and the paths and the tarot trump. That's all there too. It's another great table. I've used this book a lot over the years. I always will. It's just incredible. You know, and the notations or annotations by the Ciceros that go all the way through it. There's some black and white illustrations. For example, there's the Hermit from the tarot. Black and white illustrations. It's just a fantastic book. Like I said, it's an absolute classic. It really is. That's why I wanted to talk about both of these books today, because I think a lot of people are interested in pathworking with Qabala, and I think a lot of people are curious about it, but they may not know how to go about it. And these are the best books for learning about pathworking and how to approach it and how to work with that. You know, with understanding, with ritual and magic. These are two great books. So I wanted to talk about that today. And yeah, it's good to be back. I've had a 2-month break, and it's really good to be back on the channel. I don't know whether you can notice, but I've got something here on my cheek here, which is sort of, it's sort of related to the medical issues that I had while I was away. That will fade over time. So yeah, I was out of action for a couple of months, and I'm just well enough now to start back with my channel. So as usual, I will put some details below the video. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.